There I was talking to my mother about my present health issues, and she launched into a discussion on prices of doctors and her perception of my unhealthy choices right in front of her sister. Once again, I was on speaker without my consent and being used as some sort of presented public comfort blanket to my mother. Her emotionally needy woman child was calling her because she cannot get a colonoscopy without asking her, "What is poop?" I hated the uncaring dynamic and often complained about it to no avail. For my mother, we had the perfect relationship because in a world that had played her for stupid, she could play me. To call my mother was difficult, and I was beginning to understand why my white friends avoided it. To them, they could go weeks without talking to their parents. Meanwhile, the Latinas needed at least a 4 times a day call log. Yet I was becoming bothered by two things. My mother never called me, and she had the tendency to repeat everything I said to her family and friends as if I was not her child, but a human incarnation of public access radio. It's how my aunts found out I was not a virgin at 28 and actually might have been a hoe. It was how at 8 years old everyone discovered I not only got my period, but mistook my bleeding for the first stages of cancer. It was also how everyone found out I was struggling in money, health, and love and everything else you're supposedly supposed to have figured out by your 30s, or if you're Latina, 23. Her friends presented their children as successful and promising, while my mother could not help but show some cracks in my facade. In my mother's head, she was the curse breaker, a sort of Daenerys Targaryen. Yet she was the final notch of the same belt, another woman that had fallen victim to a world full of cons like my dad, or assholes like my uncle, and relied on their daughter to heal the wounds they swore they did not have. It was something one of my aunts had noted as she had reached her own great grandmotherhood with pride, while my mother was buying sweaters at Petco for the closest thing she would ever get to a grandson for now. Your mother is so lucky to have you. You are so good to her, and girls always stay, my aunt said, and I shivered. I was my mother's gray garden, or in my family, Carmen. My Aunt Carmen never had kids and was engaged only once to a supposedly gorgeous man that died in a car accident before their wedding. After that, she took some years to travel the world, but when I met her, she was a servant to a mother who verbally abused her and could not avoid any opportunity to make her seem useless, despite being the first one she called in any emergency. I was beginning to see the engendered result of being single and past age 25 in a Latino family. You became your mother's caretaker, and the very opportunity for her to take out the resentment and bitterness she had against the world in exchange for some tasty ass arroz con pollo that she might offer you. I was circling an impending doom of becoming a Carmen, a woman that you would never think fell in love or traveled the world because you only knew her according to how stupid her mother made her look for some sort of ghostly feeling of needing to be needed. Now I really was shitting myself. It is what happened to my mother and her mother, and it's what happened to Carmen and her mother as well. But it's not happening to me. I would rather one of Daenerys Targaryen's dragons flame my ass, especially because I am no longer the emotional foundation for those that would rather have me look like a public fool and deny their own feelings and journey than, well, simply love me. It's a really hard realization to know that to have a boundary might mean you have no parents, but Carmen and my mother were never happy as the beloved beating bags of their moms. And it does not feel like a fair price/punishment for not having a man. Having no dick does not mean you have no life. Moreover, these women never demanded from anyone else, particularly the men that took for them, which is why I will not pay for their choices. Now that I write this, it might explain why two of my aunts married a pair of losers in their 40s. Their sisters were starting to ask, "When are you taking care of mom?" All right, let's dissect. So, yeah, I called my mom and I was talking about my health issues because I'm trying to get more holistic. I'm trying to get more in tune with my body because I really do think my friend, I think the book is called The Body Remembers. My friend unfortunately got hit by a bus and she read that book and it totally triggered her because our is kind of a spiritual call log. And you will be surprised. I always tell people, stress does kill. You do gain weight when you're stressed. And it's not even stress eating, it's just you get inflamed, your cortisol goes up. And I feel like my entire life, my mother put her emotions in me like a purse. and acted then like she didn't. It's like I was her diary. She put down every feeling she ever had, every thought, and then because she ripped the pages, aka my soul, it was like she never had a diary. And now that I'm older, I just don't want to be the emotional support system for someone that doesn't even acknowledge they can feel. To my mother, there's no feelings, it's all thoughts. And when she did that with my aunt, I found it so. I think I even did ugh, like an audible ugh, because not only was I automatically, she always puts me on speaker with her friends and stuff because I honestly don't know why. I think it's because I'm funny and she wants me to make them laugh. But it's one of those things that I've realized in perspective. My mother hoisted me like entertainment in front of people. She would either tell them, use me as an example on how to mold a child, or like tell me to be funny. And they never, like, nobody did that to their kids. Like, that was only my mom, that was only her. But she will never see that it's only her. Like, when my aunt talks to my cousin, never puts her on speaker. My cousin is happily dating, she's traveling the world. If she has financial issues, I don't know about them. And I felt when she questioned me about my spending, it was in some ways implying that I'm this lavish overspender that is not checking her finances. And people don't do that to their kids. People either brag about them or say that they're perfectly fine and never admit that they're probably in the midst of the fentanyl crisis. Like, people have either complete discretion or brag. And I feel like my mother says everything. My secrets, my hopes, my dreams, my ups, my downs, my triumphs. Like, I am apparently a new edition of OK Magazine comes out every week dedicated to me because she's doing okay, folks. Um, and I hate it. I got so mad. I was like, don't do that. And that was really big for me because I don't stand up. My mother, one of the things that I realized with both my parents is that they were both some form of coward. My father hated consequences, loved committing crimes. My mother would have to pent up her anger to the point of volcanic to actually explode on someone who was hurting her. She would explode on me, but to confront the actual villain of her life, never. She kind of did this thing where I'll take the higher road. They know what they did wrong. God knows what they did wrong. And she taught me that that's how you become a good person. And that's how I became a fat person. Because what I did was I was just like, well, somebody upset me, get me ice cream. I don't think she never taught me how to healthily approach feelings. She didn't like feelings. There was no need for feelings. And when somebody betrayed her as often as they did, especially the men in her life, it was just, you know, what can we do? And it made me resent her in the sense of, here I was with this woman that let me spill milk, and I might as well throw myself to the cows. And my father, nothing. My uncle, nothing. One of her friends called her stupid, nothing. And my aunt does have the tendency to call my mom when she needs something. Advice, somebody to take her to the doctor. And my mom happily goes. But if I call her with something, I have to figure it out. I one time asked my mother to help me send emails, and she said she doesn't know how to send emails. She was a social worker for 30 years. She emailed. And I think for me, when my aunt said, it's so good that your mother has you because girls stay, that terrified me because my mother's dynamic with my grandmother was amazing to me. To my mom, not so much. I even loved it that my grandmother was kind of bitchy to my mom because my mother was so overwhelming to me that I felt like there's my revenge. I got my shield here. Grandma's in town. And but what happened with my mother and Carmen was I I think my grandmother I don't think my mother was as raked through the coals as my aunt Carmen was, my titi Carmen, because she had a child and there was this kind of, she's got a kid. There is this a little bit of kind of there still is a lot of machismo in the Latino community, and there still is this dynamic of if you are a single woman in your 30s and your 40s, enjoy a few years of that because you're probably going to have to take care of an elder. Um, and when my aunt said that to me, it shook me because my mother isn't kind to me. And the idea of being like the way my mother is with my grandmother, or the way my Titi Carmen was with her mother, or the way even one of my mother's friends, and I put her down. Like I have a lot of tias. Half of them are blood, half of them are just childhood friends that automatically became tias. It happens in the Latino community. Discuss. One of her friends married this loser. Two of her friends, actually, that I do call Titi, married these losers. And I really do genuinely feel, especially with one of them, it was because of that pressure. As our elders get older, somebody has to take care of them. And there is this kind of, well, you don't have a life. You didn't have kids. You don't have a man. You're single. Stop traveling. Your mother's coughing. And it shocks me. And I see that shark circling, and I'm going to kill that shark. That shark is not coming into my waters because the dynamic of my mother's ability to confront me compared to men is really like, whoa. And it's something that I notice in terms of my family. Like the women confront each other in ways that I feel echoes what they really want to say to the men. Like my father said, I'm not paying child support. She wrote him a letter, told him I don't like that, but certainly didn't take him to court. His other wife threatened, she's going on a European vacation. You know, my mother, she was so volcanic with me. And it just took me aback. That feeling of, I don't know if you love me. I know you love that I love you. I know that you love that I'm the only one that stays with you. But I don't know if you know me enough to actually love me. Because if you present me as this economic, emotional burden to a sister that only calls you when she's in need, do you love me? And maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I am overthinking it. But that, and I'm saying that because my mother does feel that she'll deny it till the kingdom of heaven returns, but she'll tell me, sometimes I wish we hung out more. I feel so used. And I'm like, well, why don't you say that? And yet my spending on doctors was a discussion. You know what I mean? Like there's just this feeling. Maybe I've grown enough to see that love is respect, love is kindness, love is protection. And sometimes I felt in my family, love was just this tossable thing. Oh, I love you. Yeah, I love you. And there was no depth or analysis. Like I said it once in a previous episode, my mother made it clear she would die for me. She just didn't explain to me why she killed me. Like I didn't. And I will have children. I will get married, but I don't feel necessarily that will heal my relationship with my mother. And I think what I realized when my aunt said that was everybody is so set in stone but me, which is why I'm the curse breaker. My mother thought because she was aware of how her mother mistreated her, that it's kind of like if I see the wound, I'll I I convince myself that then I know how to heal myself or how to avoid it. You know? It's like somebody with a limp can still walk. It's that kind of idea. If I recognize that I'm limping, I'll walk better. No, you really do have to go to surgery or a doctor or something. And my mother never did that. I did. And that's why I'm doing daddy recovery. And I'm not going to be a fucking Carmen, I'll tell you that. Um, but I feel bad for my community and that kind of low key pressure and that concept of women as the emotional punching bags to men and then converting their daughters into their own quiet punching bags. Because I love my mom and that she loves me. Yeah, but I don't feel the depth of it sometimes. I feel like it's training. And I wanted to get deeper and more nuanced and become respect and kindness and connection. And it doesn't because I'm changing and she's not. I'm growing and she's not. And I stunt my growth when I don't let her stay in place. If she wants to be, put me on loudspeaker and question at my every economic move, cool. I have to decide then, do I call her as much? Do I withhold things? Because I've put boundaries, I've said I don't like that, and they weren't honored. So am I the one who's really dishonoring me? And I think I am. I really do. I think I am. And it totally, totally sucks because I think what happened with my Aunt Carmen and what happened with my mom, and it's something that I've noticed in certain family members, is this kind of diluted version of their childhood and their parents. Especially my Aunt Carmen. My God, her mom just called her, would just like basically the same thing as my dad, like just eviscerate us in a way that was so casual, so normal, and laugh and love it. And she went along with it, and it actually is bringing tears to my eyes. She would laugh or she would go with it and she would continue to take care of her. And I left my dad because I wasn't going to play that. And my worst fear is that I might have to leave my mom. And it's a journey that I don't know if I'm that ready for. The journey of realizing you never really did have parents. That feeling that you were always raising you is true because I heard figure it out more than I love you. And now I'm older. I was watching Fried Green Tomatoes. Too old to be young, too young to be old. I'm in this limbo. And I really, I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to not love me. I don't want to be Carmen, praised for taking abuse because that's what it means to love your family. Yikes. Check out daddyrecovery.com. Check out Deandra on all music platforms. And please follow me on all socials. I really do love you. Put your opinions, put your dreams, opinions. When I say like opinions. Okay.